Greetings, Faith family. It's Pastor Mark with you again today, and I have a great word for you. I believe that's going to encourage you to take steps forward with Jesus from Romans chapter 8. You know, it's been said, our culture tells us anyway, that when you encounter difficulty, it's because you're doing something wrong. That's not true. Resistance is extremely good for us. I mean, how do you think I got these huge muscles? Except for resistance workouts. Just kidding, of course. Look at Pastor Jason for the big muscles. However, we need to recognize that resistance is a powerful tool for growth. Let me illustrate this. I grew up in New Hampshire, in the country, on a 5-acre farm with my family. And I have 9 brothers and sisters as well, of which I'm the second oldest, so that's a fun fact. But on the back of our property were this long row of oak trees, well over 100 years old, and super tall and just beautiful, marking the boundary of our property. What's cool and crazy to think about is the seasons that those trees have gone through. They've weathered ice storms, welcome to New England, wind, lightning, they've had branches ripped off, and yet year after year they continue to grow and produce crops of acorns in the bushel load, and they stand there majestically testifying to the goodness of God and His creation. It's a beautiful sight. You know what I thought about though? As I thought about these trees, I thought about the usefulness of seasons, the usefulness of dry and wet. You know, contrast that with, those oak trees with a story I heard about 20 years ago of a big 3-foot wide oak tree in a palace yard in London. A big windstorm came through and pushed this tree down, just knocked it right over, pulled the roots right out of the ground. But the astonishing thing was, these roots were only about 1 foot deep into the soil. And why do you think that happened? It happened because there was always moisture available. And those roots didn't have to go any deeper than that. They had what they needed right there on the surface. The trees on the back of my property in New Hampshire, where I grew up, however, had to dig deep in the dry summer heat. They had to dig down deep to go find what they needed. But that process, in the difficult times, that process of digging deep with their roots is what caused them to stand when we had the big windstorms, snowstorms, and ice storms. And I think it's very similar for us. Resistance causes us to send our roots deep. And see, we just came out of a very difficult season globally. We're still coming out of it. But with this lockdown, we've struggled emotionally. We've struggled with our mental health, some of us more than others. We've struggled with our relationships, with our spiritual life. However, I believe that as you have turned to God, your roots, spiritually speaking, have gone deeper into Him. And those roots that are deep into Him and deep into His Word and His promises will keep you steadfast in the next trial. You may not see it yet, but there out in the future, in a couple months, half a year, you're going to look back and realize, wow, I put my roots deep. Praise God for that season of difficulty. Now, I don't pray for difficulty, but I do ask God for the grace to get through difficulty. Jesus says in John 15:33, He says, in this life you will have difficulty, but take heart. Get some of my heart, get some of my courage, because I've overcome the world. And guess what? I'm with you. I'm with you until the end of the age. That's what Jesus said. He said that to us. In Romans chapter 8:28, it says, and we know that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called to His purposes. We know this. We've been speaking about promises. This is one of the promises of God. God will work all things together for the good of those who love Him. My friend Peter Warren, director over at YWAM Denver, always said that word there in the Greek is the word synergero. And it means to work things together, to combine them to work out a beautiful picture. And it's our decision now to send our roots deep, to believe that the havoc that's been wreaked in our lives, God is able to work it together for good. Here's the beautiful thing. If you're faint-hearted, or if you're finding yourself discouraged, I want you to know that Jesus understands where you're at. But I also want to encourage you, don't stay there. Choose to look to Jesus. Choose to look to Him for the strength that you need. We are meant to be the example in our neighborhoods and in our community and in this world of what it means to trust not in ourselves, but in God Himself. But it says this in the verse right before Romans 8:28. It says, "And He who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for us according to God's will." So we know that God knows us and understands us. We can take courage that when we're feeling discouraged, He gets it, He understands, but He doesn't want us to stay there. He wants us to recognize that He is working all things for good, and take that promise and believe Him for it. And here's something I heard said recently. If it's not good, God's not done yet. So I want you to remember that today as you go about your day. If you're seeing a situation that's not good, just remember, God's not done yet, because He loves you, He loves your family, and He is working all things together for your good. Bless you today. Be encouraged in the Lord.